Hello and welcome to our look ahead to what the papers will be bringing us tomorrow. With me, the broadcaster, LYNN FAULDS-WOOD, and James Lyons, Deputy Political Editor of the Daily Mirror. Let's just have a quick flick through tomorrow's front pages. The FT claiming the Serious Fraud Office could investigate allegations that RBS forced some firms to go bust. The paper also highlights a special article inside the paper written by David Cameron announcing a crackdown on EU migration. PM's plans for new rules for immigrants coming to the UK from Bulgaria and Romania, due on January the 1st, also feature on the front of the Daily Mail. Its main picture, though, of Nigella Lawson, who's been accused in court of being a regular user of cocaine. Nigella's decade of cocaine use. Claims of drug use by her also appear on the Times. It reports that Brussels is set to challenge David Cameron's plan to toughen up the rules on what benefits new immigrants can access. News that a police officer has been charged over the so-called Plebgate affair in Downing Street is the story dominating the front of The Guardian, while The Independent, as well as focusing on the Plebgate row, has a different headline: Spokes, Lies and Videotape. Scottish blueprint for independence. Let's look at some of the Scottish papers. We've got the lead on the white paper outlined by Alex Salmon today. The Herald calling the document a vision for the future. Different take on it though from the Record. Sceptical about the plans, saying the SNP leader has set out a vision of utopia which doesn't appear to be costed properly. So, welcome back. Right, let's start, I think, Lynn, with the Times and David Cameron's views on migration, curbing migration. He's got the backing of Nick Clegg. What do you make of some of these new curbs?
Well, they've been talking this up for a long time, and the thought was that the EU would never let them do it. But he's written the article, which is also featured in several of the papers on the front pages. It's manna from heaven to the Tory right wing, I suppose, and it's promising that there'll be a crackdown on vagrants and beggars. Personally, I don't think you see too many of them in this country, but they're going to be shipped off home. They're going to restrict benefits. If you come here, you're going to get no money for 3 months, and then if you get money at all, it will be for 6 months, and then it will be stopped again unless you've got a proper job. There'll be a minimum income level, a threshold before you can start getting any benefits at all. So there's quite a serious crackdown.
And is that going to cause problems with the Commission, on James?
Yeah, I mean the government sources are saying they do expect kickback from the Commission. They're already having a big row with them about other curbs on benefits that they're trying to introduce for people from other parts of the EU. And quite significantly, as Lynn pointed out to me earlier on, the government admit that actually one of the key points here, this 3-month wait for benefits, it needs legislation, and they're probably not going to get it in place
Now,
I mean, I personally don't think that this crackdown is going to make a blind bit of difference. I agree with the Bulgarian ambassador, as I was saying earlier on. You know, the people who wanted to come here have already been able to come here under the limited schemes we already have. It's not going to make that much of a difference. But I'll tell you what, if David Cameron really thinks this is so important, why does he make the MPs sit through Christmas?
Good point. And I had a very nice Romanian taxi driver bring me here tonight. So I think that there's not vast millions of them waiting to come here and sponge off us.
How much does Linton Crosby play into all of this, do you think?
A lot. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Linton Crosby has just been
something of my specialist subject, Linton.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is classic. Linton is hard on immigration, hard on crime. You know, this is exactly the sort of campaign that we saw that he ran so successfully for Michael Howard in 2005. Oh no, sorry.
He did run Boris Johnson's campaign.
The Labour government admitted they made a mistake in immigration. They were far too laissez-faire. Now in Scotland, in this lovely tome that's come out today, the white paper on Scottish potential independence. We're going to come to that in a minute then. Yeah, we are. But one of the things that he's saying is we need more immigrants in Scotland. Because they've only got 8% compared to 13%, I think it was in England.
Okay.
And so ship them up to Scotland.
Right, okay. Joining you, by the way, by the sounds of it.
Yes, I'm going back to Scotland because it sounds lovely. We'll come to that in a minute.
I'm getting told, hang on guys, I'm getting told we've got to go turn to another paper.
Yes, go on.
Let's go on to the FT. Same story. Front page article on migration, and then inside as well, Cameron's article itself. So, Cameron, an attack on EU migration. This is looking at sort of migration in the round, though, isn't it? It's not just Bulgaria, Romania. It's talking about
this is all in the, this
exactly
is, this
what
is
might
all in the
happen
round.
further
This is all in the round. And it's quite interesting to see the FT's take on their front page. They're talking about David Cameron pulling up the drawbridge. Now, why that's significant is because the FT is, you know, the business paper of record in Britain, and these curbs are not going to go down well necessarily with a lot of the business community. You've seen a lot of business leaders who are unhappy about the migration cap, and I know that Nick Clegg has signed all this stuff off, but I do wonder what Vince Cable thinks about this, because I know it's an issue which he's very, very sensitive about.
But isn't the other crucial thing the alliance that Cameron seems to form with Angela Merkel on issues like
this is another point that's made in here. Because apart from the curbs on immigrants and benefits that we see that's going to come in immediately, one of the other things that David Cameron is talking about here is looking at the whole issue of what they call free movement of labour, the ability for people in the EU to travel across the EU and work in other countries, and he wants to introduce curbs on it. And he's boasting here in this article in the FT that he's got support from Australia, Germany and
Austria.
the Netherlands. Sorry, of course, Austria.
They're joining. Australia's joining Europe.
I don't think Australia would be.
Yeah, but that's. I mean, even without Australia, that's 3 down and 20 odd to go. So it's a mountain to climb from.
And then, what are your thoughts about this? Because we're not part of Schengen.
Well, I'm an immigrant to England. No, I think there's far too much talk about immigrants in a really pejorative way, where we're running them down all the time as if they're fearsome. We need immigrants in this country. We need more clever people to come in and support all the pensions that we've got here. So we have to be very careful.
And the cost-benefit ratio analysis, I mean, a lot of studies would support that quite strongly.
The problem is, though, although there is a definite case to be made for immigration boosting the economy, the problem is that it's often people on the lower end of the spectrum, the lower paid workers who end up competing for jobs with them, see their wages depressed. There are losers as well as winners.
It's the demographics, isn't it? If you've got a young workforce coming from countries like Romania and Bulgaria, they're not actually going to be using that many of the states.
There's a lot wrong with the immigration system that's going to be addressed, but we mustn't turn them into bogies.
OK, on to the Telegraph. Picture here of Nigella. We'll come on to Nigella in a moment. But the main story, NHS wants Samaritan Army to help elderly. Lynn, start us off on this
friends.
one. Yeah.
This is the NHS idea that we recruit 100,000 people to be winter friends to the old or elderly people in the infirm, and we go out there and sweep their paths and take them to the doctors, probably whether they want to go or not. It just won't work.
Well, you said that, but doesn't that happen in a lot of rural communities? I mean,
exactly.
It's in cities that it doesn't work, and something like this, spearheaded by Joanna Lumley and Stephen Fry like that, I mean, isn't that laudable just in terms of trying to get some sort of a sense of society working, looking after people who may be living by themselves?
It's laudable. The trouble is you can't tell the British what to do in this way. You have to find another way to encourage us, so it's our choice to do it. We're a nation of individualists. We're you tell the Scandinavians what to do, they all go and do it because they're homogenous. You tell the British, and we're quite loud to say, I'm already doing it. I'm going to stop now because you're telling me.
James, the key word here is volunteers.
Well, I mean, if this was about, being neighbourly, then that would be fine. But what we're talking about here is a mounting crisis inside the NHS, which is caused by, casualty units getting basically inundated with mainly elderly patients.
Winter deaths up by 29%.
Exactly, and this is no solution to that.
Yeah, okay. 500,000 people a year end up with things like pneumonia and malnutrition and going into hospital, elderly and infirm people. Okay. And we need a better solution than winter friends.
Just whizzing through very quickly, we got the slave is the daughter of Enigma Code hero. This is another twist to this extraordinary story about these
something different every day.
The alleged slavery of enslavement of these 3 women. That's just at the bottom, but we haven't got a great deal of time, so let's move on to the Sun. And
I think the Mirror has also got this on the front page. Nigella.
Yeah,
in court. They've said she took coke daily. But
James, it's very odd having somebody from a paper who doesn't actually put their own paper in the run-up.
I did protest.
Modest.
said that
Well, we got the
they so rarely do the Sun compared to the Mirror.
We got the sister
yes.
paper up in Scotland. OK, look, Nigella, this is going to go across all the papers, isn't it, really, when it kicks off. But already we've had this this lifting of the evidence which the judge originally refused inadmissible in terms of publicity. Lynn?
For a judge to say it's all right to say things like Nigella took coke daily for 10 years, there's been some pretty strong evidence come before that judge who'd previously turned it down. And she's going to have to be a witness in court, in Isleworth Court near me. I might pop round and listen. It's just, to me, this is staggering, this story.
Well, James, it's all about whether they can use the defence of bad behaviour, isn't it, by these...
Exactly, yeah. This is a couple of her kitchen confidants, as she's termed them, yeah, who are accused of swindling Nigella and her former husband Saatchi out of £300,000, and what they're going to argue is, in fact, that it was all down to her bad behaviour, and that's where all the money went.
Hush money, really, they're saying, for her bad behaviour.
Yeah. OK. Well, she
quid.
may well be giving evidence in a few weeks.
And her 19-year-old daughter, apparently, Charles Saatchi called her Hygela, and it's alleged in court that they were both out of their heads, according to on drugs.
OK, all right. Let's move on to the Independent. It's a good headline, don't you think? Spokes, lies, and videotape.
Oh, yes.
What do you think?
It is, well, yeah, and there's a subheading here as well, which sort of runs through the various dramatic developments today and ends, so who's telling the truth? And sadly, we don't get to see the end of the articles. I'd love to know what the Independent's judgment is on that, particularly with all the libel action.
Well, exactly. I doubt if they're actually reaching any conclusion.
Oh, do you think so?
I think it's a mistake to put just this one story on the front page, because if you feel you've seen enough about Andrew Mitchell, and I feel I have, actually.
Some people felt that before this whole row kicked off.
I'm not going to pick this up.
Right. Well, he may well be back. So, as Deputy Political Editor, be careful what you say. You know.
I don't think so.
Right. OK. Let's go to Scotland. Herald
Yay.
and Daily Record. So Lynn's moving back to Scotland.
Yeah.
James, you used to work for the Record. Do these numbers add up?
Well, what I find extraordinary is we've been looking at the papers here, and we're now talking about an independent Scotland, and it seems as if we're already talking about two different countries. There's absolutely no crossover between the Scottish papers tonight and what's been printed, you know, south of the border. It's quite extraordinary.
Nigella's haggis isn't quite the hit it was, perhaps.
Well, I'm not sure. I did wonder if we might see her on the front pages up there as well, yeah. But clearly not. No, I mean, you know, we've had this bizarre 670-page wish list today from the First Minister of Scotland. It's actually, he promised it would answer all the questions. It kicked off quite a lot of others. One of the things they've said is they're going to introduce a new childcare policy if they have an independent Scotland. Well, they don't need an independent Scotland to do that.
No.
Do it today.
Then just turning to the Record, I'm slightly more sceptical than the Herald. It's quite interesting. Who was that SNP member who said it made the American Declaration of Independence look like a post-it note?
Record's columnist, actually.
So the record is far more sceptical.
Now, the thing about this, I think it's great getting Scotland on the front pages, even if it's only the Scottish papers, because I've always thought I lucked out in life by being born Scottish. There's a lot of pride in Scotland. We have to be very careful. Yes, this does look like a wish list, and it does look like he wants to turn Scotland into the land of milk and honey, as I think I said earlier, and they're going to keep everything.
Well, maybe everyone wants to do that. It's whether they can afford to do it.
They can't.
I mean, it's coming here. Here we see that, you know, Alex Salmond has said that everyone will be £600 better off. Well, I mean, what a lack of ambition. Why not 6,000 or, you know, 600,000?
That's ridiculous.
You know what I mean? Well,
you've got to sound a bit plausible.
Well, you know, how did he pick this number? Exactly 600?
Well, the thing is, he's got a referendum in 10 months.
How much oil and gas is left as well, then? I mean, yeah. What happens when that runs
by
out?
2020, they're in trouble, but they might have found some more by then.
Or maybe they'll allow fracking.
I think whatever they've said on Trident and getting rid of Trident, I think you'll find they'll be making quite a pretty sum, actually, of renting out Fastlane Base, because the costs in building those kind of facilities, you know, in England...
But enough to run a country?
The cost has been put to me at anything up to 50 billion. So I think they'll be able to milk the Westminster government for all they can.
All right.
One other thing I'd just say as well, it's really interesting on the different things.
It's not that at the moment they're not going to win. But a
lot are undecided. Your last point, James? Quickly.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I was talking about two separate countries. Apparently they actually issued the Westminster press packet, went up to Scotland today to cover all this with international press badges. So, you know, in their minds they're already there.
And made them take their passports. OK.
It's marketing.
That's it. Thank you very much indeed, both of you, Lynn and James, for taking us through the papers. Now, stay with us here on BBC News at midnight. First Minister Alex Salmond sets out his vision of an independent Scotland, but opponents say it is a work of fiction. Much more analysis and reaction to that. In the meantime, let's catch up with all the latest sports news and get this on Sports Day.